Yeah, politics. See, it's not actually politics coming. It's top down. Uh, People see politics at the top level, and that's how it becomes part of the culture of the organization. I won't say exactly divide and rule. I would say call it as positional power or power being generated on various bases, and one knows how to use and exercise those powers for your own benefit, and that is where the political gains come. When you use the word politics in office, politics at home, or maybe political organizations, it's about your own benefit attached to pursuing a cause. And while you pursue a cause, there are various power bases you use to exercise influence and gather control. More than trust me, I would say don't question me. I'm always right. Look, do you think politics is always negative? Yeah, it's not necessarily always. Then political skill is also, I would say, a managerial skill. Look, it's not about being difficult. It's about having one more skill in your managerial, uh, you know, attire. It's a political skill. Maneuvering, certain amount of maneuvering and a certain amount of conviction, uh, being exercised, being persuaded uh, in getting an idea of work, in getting a project done, winning people to your side, etc. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Which skills can be bad? So, managers rely upon power and authority to influence people, to make commitments to the goals of the organization, and to get things done from their subordinates. Now, how appropriately managers use their power, influence, and authority can determine their effectiveness in achieving the goals of the organization. Now, most managers feel they need more power than what they possess at any point of time. No matter what is their level, setting, or function, most of them feel that their situation would have been better if they had more power. In organizations, following remarks are often heard. If only I had the necessary authority to get these people on track, if only I had the power to influence my superiors, what I need to get things done is more authority. On the other hand, select highly successful managers understand that power is critical, dynamic, and prevalent all around. Now, what they probably require to know is how do they acquire it. So, power is available, immense. How much do you need it, and how do you acquire it is something which individually we need to, you need to understand to make your ambitions and make your plans work. Are you all able to understand? Yeah, it's just getting uploaded, Monica. Just hang on there. Yeah, we are referring to chapter 9, I guess, power and authority. So you have legitimate power, you have coercive power, you are reward power, you are resource power, and your information power. This is at the formal or the position power, the power which your position generates in the organization, which is natural. Then at the personal level, you have expert power, you have interpersonal power, which is the behavioral or the interpersonal skills or maybe communication skills, which some individuals have and can greatly influence other people who willingly and happily work for those who command the skill. Then you have empathetic ability, you have persuasive ability, ability to get results, access to resources. It could be some person in power there, in the maybe somebody in accounts who can give you the budget, material power. Is it clear? Maybe somebody in the training and development department, maybe somebody in HR who can help you to get a person recruited. So resources, it could be anything, man, material, money, anything. But then you have access and you know how to use that resource. Yeah, then you have the relationship power. What is referent power? Any idea what is referent power? It's mentioned in page 163 also, but any guess on what is referent power? And then as we just saw, there was charismatic power. So entrepreneur of the year, businessman of the year, a big industrialist, designations, these are all and the Time magazine now and again comes out with the most powerful person across the world, across the universe, uh, you know which also talks about the power basis of a person, which could be inherited, which could arise out of your position. It could be because of your brand of your organization, designation. So there are a lot of power bases. Yeah, what is referent power, I said? Yeah, using somebody's name and referring to somebody and using that base as your power. Which at times I would also say which could be an outcome of your networking capability. If you're a good networker, you could use this referent power. And networking ability is also a skill of a manager, right? You agree to that? Authority is the legitimate power of a manager to direct his or her subordinates to take action within the scope of the manager's position. Taking slightly longer time than visualized, getting uploaded. So you have line authority, you have staff authority, and you have team authority. So basically after having seen the case study, we are trying to see how does one use power and authority and get your work done. Yeah, I guess the one slide which I wanted you to understand was something which is mentioned using what is that you see in your organization? How many power bases are being used in your daily operational life? I just mentioned about all these powers being used. Very true. So you empower yourself by building and using the referent power, building and using expert power. Where does expert power come from? Any idea? Expertise. Yeah, you might be good at the marketing function, or maybe you might be good at operations, but then you might also have some other base of information, sound substance, some substantial knowledge in some subject by which the expert power can exercised, and people come back to you for guidance and feedback, and that's how your expert power comes into foreplay. Using reward power, using coercive power. Do you think coercive power is something which one should use? Yeah, not, Varun, it's not merely domain expertise. Your experience may also count there. Your exposure to different environment may also count there. So, yeah. Do you think coercive power is something which one should use to empower? Is positive or negative? Yeah, at times yes. But you should be able to judge, with whom should you be using that. As a manager, you need to empower others, providing necessary resources and authority, believing in the team, demonstrating and communicating trust in their competencies. Yeah, situation based. True, people will lose trust if we constantly use coercive power. Excellent. High involvement in the development as well as accomplishment of tasks and goals. We have already discussed this. So in a highly centralized organization, you have so when the organization grows in size, centralization becomes untenable. Subordinates have to be trusted to make things more decentralized. It's a managerial approach of dispersion of authority throughout the organization to enable managers at all levels to make an optimum contribution to role they're assigned to perform. You can't be doing it all every time. It's not appropriate as well as advised. Delegation is an important managerial task. Identifying the task to be delegated, who will make the cold calls, who will write the basic program, who will talk to the client, who will be the public face of the organization, who will chair who will be part of certain meetings, So you have tasks to be delegated from your managerial task. Determining the results expected as outcome of delegation. Yeah, so when you are delegating, what are the results expected from the individual? You need to be very clear about it. Selecting the right individuals, very, very critical there. So your understanding of individual behavior, their aspirations, their competencies, so that they carry out the role in a better fashion. Assigning specific duties and tasks to individuals, granting appropriate authority to that individual, creating an obligation or responsibility to perform, monitoring performance and providing feedback, and last but not the least, evaluation of final outcome of the delegation. So you need to reflect back and introspect also how things have worked for you. So there are various levels of delegation which we have also mentioned in your book. Advantages and disadvantages, you already know about it. Yeah, so you have the first one, like where you say, do exactly what I say, or follow these instructions precisely and wait till you are told something. Prashant, which one are you referring to as saving time? There is something which you exercise and use, and something which you enjoy also. You want others to be saying this to you. There could be a delegation where look into the situation and describe it to me, I will decide. So once and twice you might like this, third time you say anyway you have to decide, and maybe looking into the situation may also be not very critical. The third one is a better one because here we are deciding together. So your again involvement is higher there in deciding together. Tell me the situation and what help you need from me in assessing and handling it. Give me your analysis of the situation and recommendations. I'll let you know whether you can go ahead. Decide and let me know your decision and wait for my go ahead before proceeding. Decide and take action. Let me know what you did and what happened. Decide and take action. You need not check with me. Is it right? The one which I just mentioned. Decide and take action. You need not check with me. Laissez-faire. I would call it as a laissez-faire kind of a situation. This is the highest degree of freedom that a manager can give to a subordinate while delegating a task and retaining the responsibility for the activity. It requires a high level of confidence because the manager would see or analyze or maybe evaluate the quality of the performance outcome after a significant time. The superior plays the role of a mentor for the subordinate. Decide what needs to be done and manage the situation accordingly. It is your area of responsibility now. So, which is it, how do you analyze this last one? Highly strategic, right? Fixing responsibility, sharing responsibility. It's not even sharing, it's completely handing over responsibility to somebody else. So there is a formal change in the role being handled. You are formally assigning a role to a person and saying that now it's your responsibility. Yes. So, personality, experiences of the delegating manager, experience of the individual, criticality of the task and situation will decide on how much to delegate. Reasons are basically love for authority, unwillingness to let go, lack of confidence in subordinates, fear of subordinates' advancement, there's a feel of threat. Subordinates at times do not take up the task because being of fear criticism, lack of information and resources, lack of self-confidence, absence of rewards and incentives, and organizational aspects like maybe organization culture itself does not reward taking responsibility. Defining the task, making the task measurable, getting agreement of subordinates, delegating realistic task, making the task time bound, week, 10 days, or maybe a date on a certain month, time by a time, precisely mentioned time on a certain date, some task being recorded, and now you know that when you give a call at the various call centers, your the conversation is recorded. Yeah, you have seen that happening. Yeah, improving the conversation and also the ability of the individual to what all can those frontline executives take up. Yeah, quality as well as what all tasks can be assigned to them. True. So we are taking up the next topic, that is chapter 10 of staffing. Yeah, which was that one? Which was that, Monica? No, Anil, that's not, delegation is not you. That's what I said. You looking at your, your own personality and the experiences you have had, your subordinates' expectation, their maturity to handle responsibility. Yeah, so these are important factors which will determine how much of delegation can you do. Very, very situational. Monica had a question, which are you referring to the last slide? Checking and controlling measures. You know, the manager has to make it clear to the subordinates how the task that is being delegated will be measured during its progress. I mean, review, monitoring, discussion, all that is part of the, it has to be told to the, what are the methods in place. Maybe it's part of the performance management process. Interim meetings periodically depending upon the length, nature and criticality of the task. So, what are the methods, quality check methods and processes in place to monitor and control. So, the next topic I am going to take up out is staffing. So, all organizations say that people are our greatest asset, yet few practice what they preach, let alone truly believing it. So, we look at kind of touch upon the elements of human resource planning, explore the different nuances of recruitment, selection and employee separation, understand induction, comprehend performance appraisal, understand challenges and trends affecting staffing function in the 21st century. So basically, staffing is an activity that involves all actions that ensure filling and keeping filled the positions in an organization structure. The primary focus is on acquiring and retaining right kind of people at right positions in the organization at the right time. So creating the demand. So for example, if you look at, at the national level, FDI in retail is an opportunity which will, there will be creation of new skills, new job positions and thereby more employability, and the threat is where people do not have the competencies to beat the competition. So the constituents of staffing are human resource planning, job analysis, job description and job specification, recruitment and selection, induction, training and development, performance appraisal or performance management system, recognition and reward, promotion, employee retention, organizational exit or separation. There are very critical functions in an organization, and all managers are part of these staffing functions. It's not necessarily the human resource managers or the human resource department who's handling this. Human resource department or management function exercises, practices this function through the line managers. So the HR planning begins with assessing current human resources availability, the supply factor, and then they develop detailed HR inventory charts which includes a succession plan for every key position. Future is about how, what kind of expansion, what kind of growth plans the organization has, in terms of new product launch, new product development, new geographical location, export import functions, all that. So how people would be needed and where do you source that people from? Do you deploy people from internally? You go out in the market and source new people in the organization. Then you have job analysis, a systematic process to determine the various aspects of human resource requirement for different positions of an organization in quantitative and qualitative terms. It defines different jobs in detail, duties, role and task, and identify the human resource requirements to perform that job. It can be further classified as job description and job specification. Induction is the orientation of a new employee to the organization, right? So, the anxiety of the person who would be joining the organization would be very high of what, as far as the job description is concerned, as well as the people whom he or she should be knowing while in the organization, right? So the day, and also about the milestones you have to achieve, the vision of the organization, how it plans to grow, and how does the actually the individual identify himself or herself with the organizational plan. So through an appropriate induction plan, the HR or the line manager makes the journey a smoother and a less anxious one. Is that clear, Monica? So not having an induction plan in place, a proper introduction plan in place, the anxiety level of the employee could be very high. How many of you have had been part of a appropriate induction plan? Yeah, Alok, you have a induction plan in your organization? Okay, were you part of an induction plan? How do you think it helped you? Anyone? Those who have been part of induction plan, even if you don't go into the academic point, how do you think it helped you? Yeah, knowing my organization better, true. Don't you think it's important for the individual also to identify with the organizational plan and growth? Yeah. So while you plan for yourself, in terms of career, in terms of acquisition of new skills, for example, I'm sure when you have come back to a classroom and you are learning so many new things, and you are acquiring yourself with a degree, you are making a plan for yourself. So if your organization can accommodate you, well, it's good. Otherwise, you have greener pastures around where you can fulfill your plans. Isn't it? Yeah. So why we're discussing the staffing plan is, you might not be an HR manager, but you're a line manager. You'll have a team. Yeah. So you're responsible for people. So the recruitment activity would involve, the overall strategy to recruit talent, whether it is from the global level. For example, recently Tata Motors hired a CEO who is not an Indian, right? Who is not an Indian. So they said, we are looking at global skills, because the company itself has become global, and they will be looking at new geographical locations, new market. So a person who with the domestic experience he thought would not have the appropriate skill to expand. Monica, can you exemplify there? Networking as well as understanding global markets, the trends, and the design you could have in your products to launch in appropriate markets. Monica, can you have an appropriate example there? Yeah, Atul, what is it? Atul, I have not understood when you said not agreed. Yeah, those companies who intend to go abroad, and you look at if an induction is not appropriately planned, and if they are not able to answer the queries of the new joinees, obviously it can have its negative impact, not otherwise. So it has to be planned. So large organizations usually have a formal induction program, usually conducted by the HR department, but people from other departments are part of the no, I have my doubts there, Monica. Maybe one of the examples where you would have witnessed that. Uh, or maybe there has been some communication problems there. So training and development, performance appraisal system, whether you have a rating scale, you have appraisal by objectives. Appraisal by objectives can be also called as management by objectives, which we discussed while we were discussing planning. So at the individual level, how do you become part of the organizational plan? Then very significant is the monetary and the recognition and reward schemes in the organization. How do you rate your reward schemes in your organization? Can I have some responses? How would you rate your recognition and reward schemes? What is that you expect in your recognition and reward schemes, R&R schemes? Can I have some examples? I'm sure you would be having bonus, you would have annual increments, token of cash is gift. How much? Many organizations have best performer of the quarter, best employee of the month. If you go to McDonald's, you'll find some employees of the week, fortnight, and then some monetary value attached to that. Parameters prescribed. What is on the spot awards, Amit? Rising Star Award, okay. Best teams, best star of the month, yes, Shikhar, yeah, in TCS you have that. Top Gun Award, Monica says there's a Top Gun Award there. Which organization are you working, Monica? Okay. Alok says in our team. Alok is also from, no, Alok, where are you? You are from Alcatel-Lucent, you said. Alok, you have Unsung Hero Award in your organization, is it? Vijay says there's a Rockstar Award. What is Unsung Hero? Somebody who was never identified before. Best Mentor Award, Extra Miler Award. So you have a lot of reward and recognition strategies in the organization. I'm sure they are significant for one's motivation and one's association with the organization, isn't it? So when you become managers, I'm sure you will come out with lot more innovative ways of rewarding and recognizing them. So retention, separation, whether you're firing, whether you're laying off, transferring, reduced work week. We had Toyota reducing its work week when Toyota at Japan met with the tsunami. Then you have the voluntary retirement scheme, early retirement scheme, job sharing facilities. Yeah, some of the trends that will affect the staffing function is about from mass manufacturing economy to a knowledge-based economy, where there would be more of market feedback coming as a basis of research and development. The relevance of learning and knowledge management, how much of every diploma or maybe a degree or learning might have a shelf life. The nature of work and organization, the automation, the technology involved, the adaptation, adoption of the mastering of technology, their workplaces, changes in the employment patterns. It's going to be full-time employment, contractual employment, more of 24/7, or maybe telecommuting, freelancing, yeah, flexi staffing, leasing people. These are all going to be critical questions which individual HR needs to answer. But all said and done, any strategy relates to people has to be thought of in terms of giving security, giving sustainability to the organization, to the self, and to the community at large. You can't have Maruti Manesar's case time and again. What is that? Can you elaborate, Anil? Yeah, can you elaborate on crowdsourcing? See, SEO. What does S stand for? Search engine optimization. Okay. Okay, anyways, with that topic, we have almost completed part 4. In the next class, I intend to take part 5 and part 6. Right? So, can we call off the day here? Yeah, Alok. Yes, Amit, carry on with your question. Assignments. You have online assignments. I'm sure you have. I don't know what you're opting for. You have both the option of online as well as offline assignments. I think you can ask Professor Tushar Marwa for that. He will be the coordinator, so he'll let you know. Yeah, thank you, and see you all next week.